Good to be here this evening. Thank you very much for making the effort to be here. I know the weather has not been cooperative. How many of you hate snow? A few of you. I'm on that crowd right now. How many of you would continue to have more snow? Okay, look around. You can go hit those people after the service if you'd like to. But I do appreciate the effort you made to be here. I know it's a sacrifice to get out and drive in this weather and take the chance, but you did that, and I appreciate it. I told my wife, I said, if you'll come, I think we'll have at least 3 or 4 people, but obviously we had more than that, so I appreciate making the effort. Talk to you a little bit tonight about a subject called labels. I don't know if you're like me, but I do not like going to events, going to parties, going to places where they ask you to put on a name tag. I just don't like it. So I'll go in and they'll give me a name tag, and I always wear it. But I may not wear it, you can see it. They say, can you wear this? Absolutely. So I may wear it on the inside of my coat, and it always frustrates people because they're all acting like they know you, and they don't know who you are. They're just coming up and trying to, hey, how are you? And then I'll have the label, and they act all puzzled. Oh, I guess I don't know you. No, you don't. So keep on moving. But it's awkward when people act like they know you just because they can read a label on you. They don't really know me. They're just reading a label. Now, if you were going to a party and you got to fill out your own label, that's kind of what we're going to talk about this evening and see what kind of a label might be on if you were going to define yourself. And some of you, this may be your label. Maybe it would be something like this: I am successful. So you have this, some of you think you have that label, but we'll tell you you don't, all right? But you think you have it, and you want to know what makes you to be successful. So if you had to write your own label, you would want this to be what you could write. Or maybe you would have another label. Maybe this would be your label right here. And some of you walk around like you should wear this label, and no, the label does not fit you. But it is humorous to watch you walk that way, so continue to do that. You think you're attractive. I've talked to people who think they're attractive. In fact, I enjoy watching, I don't know if any of you, I enjoy watching young, especially seems like ladies, try to take selfies of themselves when they think that no one's watching. And after the 30th or 40th attempt, they kind of nod like, yeah, that's a good one. I just think it's funny. They want so badly to have this label attributed to them. Or maybe you're a spiritual frame of mind, and this is a label that you want or have. Now, some of you regret this label sometimes, and you are very glad this is not written on your bumper as you cut people off in traffic, or you respond after they cut you off in traffic. Especially, I know the roads are a little bit bad today, but they're not so bad you have to go 5 miles an hour. So don't go 5 miles an hour in front of me today. Go a little faster than that. So at this point, you're very glad this label is not in a prominent place on your vehicle. Or maybe that little snippy customer service person on the other end of the phone. You're glad they don't know that you're a Christian. But this is a label that does come with the territory, and sometimes you have this label and you have to live with it. Or maybe there's another label that we kind of aspire to or want to have. Maybe it's kind. And I know this is a label that many people think, yes, I want to be kind. But think about it. The people that you're attracted to, the people that you respect, wear this label. The people that you want your children to be around wear this label. They're kind. And yes, we know it's a Bible command. We're supposed to be kind. But we don't always fit that label. Let me give you a couple more labels. Maybe this is a label that you aspire to have if you're a parent. Or maybe you're not a parent yet, but one day you want to be. You want to be a good parent. You want this label to be applied to you by someone else. That's a good parent. But are you willing to sacrifice and take the steps necessary to be able to wear this label? Do you want to wear the label without earning that label? Are you willing to do what is necessary to have that label given to you? I think many of us aspire to have that label given to us. Or maybe this is a label, as you get older, you start to worry about this. Many of the younger people in this room think, yeah, I'm healthy. Just wait. All right, you have this label. This becomes a label you have to earn as you get older. It is amazing. Sometime in your 30s, you fall down or do something, and then you wake up the next morning and you're actually sore and hurting. You're like, man, what is this? My body hurts. And you have this problem because you start to age, and you want to be healthy. And then you have these foods that you could just indulge on in your younger years. And all of a sudden you do that and you realize there's an adverse effect. I'm starting to gain weight, or my clothes are shrinking, one of the two. So you have to work very hard to be healthy. But this is a label you want. It gets a little scary when you hear of these people that are having serious health issues. And when you were a young person, oh man, those people, those aging people, I'll have to pray for them. Then you're like, man, that guy's my age. And you have to worry about this. We all worry about the labels that may apply to us, or the labels that could be given to us. Now, if you think back to a time when you were in grade school, and your parents bought you the new backpack. As soon as they bought you that new backpack, they knew it was going to happen. Within the first week of having it, you were going to leave it somewhere, or someone's going to take it, or the worst thing, you get there and 4 other kids have the exact same backpack. You remember your parents used to do as soon as they got that backpack? They'd write your name on that backpack to show ownership. You're like, man, don't write my name on that backpack. I remember as a kid, I lost a winter coat when I was in grade school. And I know that's a pain, it's inconvenient. My dad's like, oh my word. So he went and bought me another coat. And I still remember, at least it was on the inside. But it was a blue coat, on the inside was bright orange. And he took a black Sharpie. And on the inside of that orange interior of that coat, he laid it out, and he wrote Cowling in like 6-inch block letters. I was appalled. Dad, you're not losing this one. I'm like, yeah, no one will steal it now. Hey, oh, I'm not taking that one. I was so embarrassed to even take that coat off. I would slip out of the coat and like fold it. Oh, is that your coat? Yes, it is. I would never take it off all day. You want to take the coat off? Nope, nope, nope. I know sweat's rolling down, but I'm not taking this one off. Because I was so embarrassed. Because of the label and the stigma that came with that. Now, I lost that coat, so I probably deserved it. But sometimes we're worried about things and events that happen in our lives, and it changes how we act. I remember when I was in, I believe, 5th grade, I was playing soccer in grade school, soccer field. And I went to head a ball, another guy went to kick the ball, and he actually kicked me in the mouth, and 3 of my teeth got kicked out. Now, I remember coming and a little bit dazed, because I did get kicked in the head and 3 teeth kicked out. But a little bit came to the field, my dad's like, what are you doing? Get back out in that field. And I looked around it, I lifted my lip, and he's like, okay, come here. All right. But I remember grabbing a handful of blood and just slinging it down. So I spit it out, and then I ran back on the field. No, I didn't do that. But Dad actually went in the field, and he found my tooth, and they tried to reimplant my tooth, which this tooth right here, to this day, is an implant. It is still fake. If you pay me $1, I may show it to you afterwards. The other 2, thankfully, were not adult teeth, but that one was. So I went back, and they tried to reimplant that tooth, and for a while it worked, but it stuck out. And then my body rejected that tooth, and the tooth turned black. Now, I don't know about you, but that was a little bit embarrassing for me at that point. Are you from the back hills? No, I just played soccer and got my teeth kicked. I mean, how do you explain this? Do you do meth? No. All right, so I had this problem with my teeth, and it started to affect how I acted. I found myself not wanting to smile. I found that affecting my entire behavior. I found it making I didn't want to laugh because I did not want anyone to see what I felt was a bad label. And I know some of you may have something similar to that. Now, this is not my teeth. In a minute, you're going to see. That is not my teeth, by the way. That is one of the most disturbing pictures. Craig Weibel did this, and he really wanted me to show this picture, so I told him, all right, Craig, I'll let you show that tonight. You know what, Craig? Can you go back to the last slide? Because that's really disturbing right there. All right. But I do remember I went to the orthodontist, and they had to go through this procedure. Remember when they used to have to fill those cups with that goop stuff to take all the indentions of your teeth and the impressions of your teeth? You know, today they just do something, and they would take that whole thing and remember they used to shove it up in your mouth. You couldn't hardly breathe, and you felt like you're going to die, and this big metal thing hanging out of your mouth. They're like, I'll be back in 5 minutes. I'll be dead. So you have those leaving the room and gagging on that. But I remember coming back to the orthodontist a period of time later, and I looked, and I'm like, those look familiar. They had these impressions, the plaster impressions. I'm like, that's my teeth up there. Then I realized they were showing you the bad before. My teeth was a bad before. Now, that did not really help my confidence at that point. Some of you feel like your life right now is a bad before picture. And what that does is it starts to give you the labels you don't want. So we'll talk through a few labels. Maybe this is a label that applies to you. Maybe it's an unsuccessful label. Maybe right now, if you were to fill out your own label for life, for your choices, you would say, I'm unsuccessful. You would let that define you. You find it affecting your behavior. Or maybe it's unhealthy. Maybe it's the next one you have. Maybe it's just, you know what, I'm unhealthy, I know it, and you're ashamed, you're embarrassed of it. You know you're hurting your health, and that's allowing your behavior to change because you don't like the label you're applying to yourself. I've even talked to some people who say, you know what, I'm just dumb. And they may make a joke out of it. I've talked to people who make fun of themselves, and oh man, everybody laughs, but in reality, they would call themselves dumb. And that's the label they would give to themselves. Or maybe this is your label. I talk to people, I talked to my wife, and I counseled a lady before that she claims for 2 years she has never looked at herself eye to eye in a mirror because she said, I'm so unattractive. I don't think God made her and said, you know what, I want you to be so ashamed in how you look that you can't even look yourself in the mirror as you get ready in the morning because you're so unattractive. But some of us have labels that start to define us and our actions. I talk to other people that have this next label, and it's a sensitive label. Maybe you've admitted you made a mistake or there's a problem, and we never want anyone to have to go through a divorce, but you have this label and you feel it's a stigma in your life and you're letting it still define you today. You feel this baggage, and sometimes people are so worried about their label. It's almost as soon as they meet you, hey, I'm so-and-so, and you know what, I'm divorced. You know what, I'm Keith, and I don't care. You have this. It's not because you don't really care, but you don't want to let them wear it on their sleeves. They feel it's defining them, and it shouldn't. Unfortunately, some people struggle with this. Think of an addict. And they feel this is a stigma they can't get away from. And they feel it makes them inferior to everyone around them. Sometimes they feel like they're in a lower class than everybody just because this is their label. And some people that wear these tough labels, I try to remind myself at least once a day, this could be my label tomorrow. This could be my label if I make a poor decision. Just because you made a poor decision, and maybe at one point in your life this was your label, we're going to find out tonight that continues to have to be your label. I've even talked to some people who say this is their label. Why even try? I'm a loser. Why even try? I've lost my kids. Why even try? I've lost my marriage. I'm just a loser. I failed at my job. I failed at my marriage. I failed at being a parent. I'm just a loser. So they basically walk around with the loser sign, and sometimes people make a joke of it. Sometimes they embrace it and just say, I'm just a loser. They act like they're deficient in every area, and they're incapable of ever being successful. Let me ask a question. Do these labels affect our confidence in how we act? I already told you when I felt I had inferior teeth, it affected my confidence. It affected every action that I made. And sometimes when you have a bad label on your life, it starts affecting your confidence in how you act. Remember when you were a kid and all of a sudden you came to school one day and another kid in the class started calling you names? You're just dumb. And everybody started laughing. And all of a sudden you embraced that label. And you let another kid in that class write a label that said dumb. And you slapped it on and said, you know what, I am dumb. Oh man, you're poor. You put that label, I said, I'm poor. I'm going to act like I'm poor from now the rest of my life. Because you let another kid start labeling you. And you let someone else start dictating how you act and start dictating how confident you were in life. Now, these are two labels we all want. The problem is who defines what successful and popular are. Because unfortunately, sometimes striving to get these labels, we make decisions that actually undermine our success and undermine our own future. But these are labels we all strive for. If you have children, these are labels you want your children to have and aspire to. These are labels you want your coworkers to put on you one day. These are labels maybe righteously you want God to put on you one day. But who defines what those are? So, who actually has the right to label you? We're going to try to go into the Bible and find out who has the right. Some of you have a great label on your life, and some of you Terrible label. Who has the right to label you? Look at the passage. It's going to be on the screen, I believe, 1 Corinthians 6:20. If you are bought with a price, therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. So who has the right to label you? The one who made you, purchased you, and owned you. That spouse that walked out on you, that called you a whole bunch of names that you're still living to that label, does not have the right to label you. That drug that conquered your life and that you feel like is holding you captive does not have the right to label you. That immature and foolish coworker, child, teen, hurtful relationships that you had years ago, that person does not have the right to label you. Because that person and those drugs and all those problems, they did not make you, own you, and purchase you. Only your Creator, only the person who bought that and owns that has the right to put a label on you. The reason my dad could put his name on my coat is he bought it. If I'd have taken that coat to school the next day and another kid would have taken it, no one would have, but if they would have taken it and written their name on it, it wouldn't have mattered because they didn't buy it. And if a kid next to me had called me a label when I was a little kid and I start living to that label, that wouldn't be pertinent because they did not make me or purchase me. And many of us right now, you're living your life to a label. Someone or something gave you. You have every right to rip that label off. Say, this doesn't apply to me. You have every right to say, I'm a new creature in Christ. And say, you know what? Only you, God, has the right to label me. What if my kids or one of my boys came home from school and just said, you know what, Dad, I'm just an idiot. No, you're not. You're not an idiot. Hopefully you parents would do that. Some of you parents are like, yeah, you are an idiot. You'd agree with them. I just can't pass any classes. Yeah, you're like me. You're just so stupid. And you would agree with them. But most of the time you'd say, oh, no, you're not. Man, you have a bright future. Man, you know what? You are so smart. You're so capable. You work hard. You study hard. You can do anything the Lord has for you. Give them a pep talk. Maybe your daughter comes home from school. Man, so-and-so said I'm ugly. I'm just so ugly. Look at my hair. You moms would say, oh, no. Man, you're beautiful. God made you. But Mom, I'm not because I look like you. But she would not say that probably. But she would go through this whole phase and you would encourage them and help them. And you would want them to rip off the label of someone else said they're ugly. Rip it off and say, I'm not ugly. You would want them to go to school the next day and hide their face and hide like they don't want to see anybody and make sure they all walked around and were in the shadows because, you know what, I'm just ugly because so-and-so said so. They don't have the right to label you. But are we guilty of that? We get mad at our children for doing that, but are we falling into that same trap? So how in the world, if you have a bad label, do we get out of that label? An interesting verse in Romans 12, verse 2, you're probably familiar with. Be not conformed to this world. Being conformed is fitting a mold. If you are making cookies with a mold, you press that mold down, and a cookie conforms to whatever shape that mold is in. If it's a Valentine's Day mold, you press that heart shape down, and whatever you're pushing in, the cookies become a heart. And time after time, they just start conforming. And what happens is we start conforming to the mold people put on us. But God says, don't be conformed to this world. Or in this case, don't be conformed with a label someone writes at a counter and sticks on you, or at school says hurtfully to you, or maybe a former spouse has said, you're just a loser, you always have been. Maybe a parent has been verbally abusive to you and your whole life been told you're worthless. And you've been hearing that since you were a little kid, and you start to believe it. Now as an adult, you're still carrying that label around. Maybe a verbally abusive parent gave to you as a kid, and it's still so hurtful. But don't be conformed to this world. But be transformed. Transforming is a transformation takes place from the inside out. That's where you break off all those labels. You break out of that mold, and you start to see a big difference in that. How in the world are you transformed? By the renewing of your mind, by changing your thinking, by starting to have confidence that God has a label He wants to put on you. You are transformed when you quit conforming. Say, God, how in the world can I break out of this? By the renewing of your mind, that you may prove with a good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. God wants you to change your thinking and say, God, what label would you put on me? Because again, God made you, owned you, and purchased you. God is the one who, only one, who has the right to write out that label and put that on you. So you break out and say, God, you are the one who can label me. So what is the label that's on your life today? What labels are you having? I want to mention a lady and a man tonight that changed their purpose and their label to God's label and God's purpose. Maybe some of you can relate. Rahab is a woman maybe some of you are familiar with. I hope so. I'm going to skip through the story, but Rahab is known as Rahab the prostitute. Now, I'm pretty sure there's no lady in here that wants that attached to your name. What's your name? Oh, I'm so-and-so the prostitute. I don't think that's what you do. I don't think you walk around and say that. I don't think it's something to be proud of. Rahab was known basically for selling her body to strangers day after day after day after day. That's not a label people aspire to. If you read the Bible, she's called that multiple times. Now, I'm pretty sure Rahab's in heaven like, God, can you please take it off now? It's been 4,000 years. I mean, come on. At some point, can you just remove that label? And God says, hold on. What Rahab did is she put her faith in the Lord. At some point, she looked at her label and says, this isn't the label I want. I'm conforming. I'm conforming to what other people are telling me I'm worth. I'm conforming to what the life other people have given me. She goes, God, I don't want this anymore. I want to make sure, God, that I fit your label. So when she heard that the Israelites were coming, she says, God, they're coming. This is my chance. And she goes, I'm going to take a real big risk. I'm going to hide your spies. And when they come in, I'm going to say, you know what, God? I want your label. Please clean my life and give me a new label. So then what happens is this amazing thing. The spies come in and the walls fall down. They say that the area where she lived, the walls were different. When all the rest crumbled, this fell differently so she'd be saved. It was in the poorest ghetto of the town of Jericho. She was in the poorest ghetto there. And it says she lived. And she was successful to this day. In fact, in Hebrews 11, there's this whole chapter of amazing heroes. You read this and you're thinking, man, that's an amazing person. Wow, look at that one. And then you come down to verse 31. There's something that is very shocking. By faith, the harlot, Rahab, what is she doing here? And this testimony, these are like Christian heroes. What is she doing there? She perished not with them that believed not, but she had received the spies with peace. Why in the world would God put Rahab in a list of heroes? You get home tonight, read the other people in Hebrews 11, and you see if you would put a harlot or a prostitute in that same list. But what happened is God says, Rahab, you're way more than that. You're not a harlot. Let me give you a new label. And he put on there, Rahab, the hero. And that's what she still wears to this day. In fact, James, the half-brother of Christ, says in James 2:25 right there, likewise also is not Rahab the harlot justified by works when she had received the messengers and had sent them out another way. So the half-brother of Jesus probably heard Jesus talk about Rahab growing up or had read about her, studied about her, and he wrote it in his own letter that he wrote and told other people and said, hey, be like Rahab. Would you have picked her to be an example for you and your daughters? Rahab said, God, I hate my label. This is what I am. God said, that is not what you are. You're conforming. Let me transform you. How many of you tonight don't like your label? There's a man. We're going to go quickly through Mark 5. Talking about the maniac of Gadara. Mark 5:2, when he was come out of the ship, immediately there met him a man with an unclean spirit. If you can continue on to the next verse, please. Who had his dwelling among the tombs, and no man could bind him, no, not with chains. Some of you are thinking, this sounds like my toddler. Yes, it probably does. I've seen some of them in Sunday school. But you see them, no bind, not with chains, because he had been often bound with fetters and chains, and the chains had been plucked asunder by him, and the fetters broken to pieces. Neither could any man tame him. And always night and day, he was in the mountains, in the tombs, crying and cutting himself with stones. This man, does he sound like he liked his label? Does he sound like he liked being an addict? Does it sound like he liked being a person that was depressed and tormenting other people? Or does it sound like he was conforming as he was crying and cutting himself with stones? It sounds like many of us that live in depression. It sounds like many of us that live in a lone world, an oppressed world, and a lone world full of addiction and say, you know what, God, this is me. And he probably hated himself day after day. He probably had to fight that depression and hate himself and say, man, I don't even want to see the mirror. And because of his anger and frustration, he started taking out other people. And he said, man, I hate my label, but that's just who I am. I'm just an angry addict that's running around tormenting other people. I'm going to let them embrace the spirits and be an evil man as I possibly can. But then something happened different. Verse 15, they came to Jesus and see him that was possessed with the devil and had the legion sitting and clothed in his right mind, and they were afraid. Amazing thing happened. Jesus came. Several things Jesus did. Number one, Jesus approached him and talked to him and made a difference in him. And then the man begged him and said, man, can you clean me up? And Jesus sent all the evil spirits in him, there were many, into a herd of pigs. And those pigs ran off a cliff and died themselves and drowned in the sea. The men that were watching them said, whoa, that's pretty weird. So they ran into town and got some people and brought them back out. In that time, Jesus transformed the man, changed his label, changed his thinking. I don't know how long this took. You think an hour, 2 hours? I don't think it took days. Jesus maybe wanted to transform you tonight. It doesn't have to take days or weeks or years. It may be a process, yes. But the process can have a marked change tonight. By changing your label to his label. You change your purpose to God's purpose. You live your life according to the label God gives to you, not because some other person gave you that label. Now what happened is Jesus saw these people coming. They were kind of like, whoa, what's going on? They were actually more scared of this guy sitting clothed in his right mind than they were when he was naked, running around, cutting and crying himself with stones. Now at this point I have to say, when you see these weight transformations, all these people, they say, this is my before picture, and this is my after picture. If the maniac had any pictures of his before, I'd say, please, we don't need to see those. We'll just take your word for it. Because he was a crazy man. But the transformation took place when Jesus entered his life and said, hey, live according to my label. Mark 5:19, next one there, says, howbeit Jesus suffered him not, when the man begged to go with Jesus. He begged to just say, Jesus, let me live in your shadow. Jesus suffered him not, saith unto him, go home to thy friends, and tell them how great things the Lord hath done for thee, and hath had compassion on you. He said, go tell other people about the change, the transformation in your life. Go live your life according to this new label. I want everyone to see the next verse I put up. Can you put it up, please? The next one. And he departed and began to publish in Decapolis how great things Jesus had done for him. Decapolis is a 10-city area, and all men did marvel. All men did marvel. You know what that guy had to go back and clean himself up and live among the same people who knew what he was like, who knew that he was running around without clothes and cutting and crying and just being a wild man and chained and breaking chains and probably running when he saw people and yelling at them and trying to jump on them and terrorize them. He had to go back to that same town and walk through that town normal, clothed in his right mind, and get a job and go to work every day as people saw him walking him down the street and look at him weird and probably cross the other side of the street and say, yeah, there is that guy. For probably a good period of time, they watched him and said, just wait till he cracks again. Just wait till he what? Puts back on his old label. This guy had to go endure the scrutiny of other people. If he had children, those children had to go to school. Hey, yeah, is your dad, is he a wild, crazy man again? No, he's not. He will be. This guy had to go to work, and his boss had to keep an eye on him. And they probably came in the shop. Man, you hired that guy? What are you doing? That guy's crazy, man. He had to endure that scrutiny. But we learned something important. Jesus was not ashamed of him or ashamed to be seen with him. As soon as Jesus saw him, what did he went to? He went right to him. You know what? You're sitting there tonight and you're hiding and you got this old label and you think Jesus doesn't want to be seen with me. Jesus doesn't want to be around me. Jesus doesn't want my name of Christian on him. And look at me. And Jesus says, no. I want to sit down with you and have a face-to-face conversation. I want to sit and tell you right now what your label could be. I want you to sit down across from me and look in my eyes and read from me in my body language how much I believe in you. And Jesus wants you to take the label that he has for you tonight. You may sit there and say, I'm an addict just like that guy was. My life has been destroyed. I have been through divorces. I have mistreated people. I have done all these things. Man, my kids, I've mistreated them. I have an anger problem, and I've taken out on them so many times. I've abused my wife. Maybe I've done this, or maybe I've been so unkind. Maybe you're a lady, and you said I've been verbally abusive to my husband, and I've torn him down. I've alienated myself from my family, my kids. Maybe you're sitting there tonight, and you don't believe that you have any potential. You've heard that you were dumb, you were ugly, you were stupid, and you have all this baggage, and you say, I'm worth nothing. God wants to sit down with you as he did the maniac and say, let me give you a label, and I'm not ashamed of you. Also, the maniac was ready for a change from his current life and label. You have to be ready to change. Are you ready for that transformation? Don't be so comfortable with the nasty label you have, you aren't willing to try Jesus' label. That maniac was like, Jesus, please change my label. Rahab said, Jesus, please free me from this harlot label. I'm done. I've had enough. Are you at that point yet? Do you want the label Jesus has for you? Jesus challenged the maniac to embrace his past and use that as a positive. I've talked to so many people that have a past they're ashamed of. And they won't talk about it. And they won't use it to brag about Jesus because they're so ashamed of it. Jesus challenged that maniac to say, hey, you live in a 10-city area. Go back to that area and you proclaim what I've done for you. You show them that transformation. You endure that scrutiny. And you let them test you and you say, you know what? Jesus' label sticks. His change works. And some of you may not have a past you're proud of, but Jesus is telling you, put that new label on and embrace your past, not because you're proud of it, but because you're proud of God, because you're proud of what Jesus has done through you. And when you do that, you help so many other people that I may not be able to help because you can say, look what Jesus did to me. You hide from your past and live with guilt and shame. That limits you and prevents other people from being helped. There are other younger people or people just with your label that are sitting there tonight thinking, I have no hope. And you could be the one to go to them and say, yes, you do. Look what he did in me. Instead of hanging your head and living with guilt and shame, man, I've been promiscuous. I can never be a complete woman again. Jesus says, don't hide from that. Live a clean life and say, you know what, I was, but look what Jesus did for me. Look at the clean life I have now. Man, I was an addict. Man, I was just addicted to alcohol or some sort of a drug. But you know what? I'm not going to hide from that. I'm going to say, look what Jesus did through me. Maniac had to go back and it says men did marvel. Why did they marvel? Not because he's an awesome guy, but because Jesus is an awesome God. He bragged on God. Is your life a testimony to brag on God? I'm not encouraging any of you to make poor choices so you can come back and say, I'll be a better testimony. But if that's been your path, if that's been the road you've chosen, bounce back, take that label and wear it with pride and say, you know what, Jesus, you're not ashamed of me. I'm not going to be ashamed of you. And you can walk around and say, hey, God, what label can you give me? What transformation can you do in me? He had to embrace his skepticism and judgment and allow the scrutiny to magnify Jesus even more. You may have someone challenge you and say, yeah, you're going to crack at some point. And just smile and say, with Jesus' help, I won't. At some point, they're going to keep testing. You're going to say, you know what, it works. They're enduring that scrutiny. At some point, when the maniac kept going to work day after day after day, at some point on the job, his boss had to say, you know what, you're a good employee. Man, I appreciate you. At some point, his wife had to come to him and say, man, I love you, hon. You're a great husband. At some point, his kids probably came back to him and just said, you know what, Dad, I'm so proud of you. Can you imagine how therapeutic those words were to him? Do you think when that happened, he got a big chest and said, yeah, I'm an awesome guy? He said, man, I sure met an awesome God. Don't do any of this to magnify yourself, but let God work in you. Let him give you his label for your life. Where are you on your spiritual journey? Where are you at? What label are you wearing? What label are you living to? Are you a single parent that says, I can't rear good kids? God wouldn't agree with you. Are you looking at your children and saying, man, they're not as capable as I thought they were? Is that really what you want them to believe? Are you proud of your kids? Are you proud of your spouse? You ladies looking at your husband and say, oh, this is all I married. Don't do that. Don't give him that kind of label. God wouldn't do that. Let God give us a label. Are you willing to change? Tonight, give a hard look right now at your label. What label would you put on yourself? Or what label do you think is on you? What label is on your lapel? If you look down and you say, I don't like that label, are you willing to change? Are you done? Are you tired of that bad label that you don't like that's affecting your confidence? That's affecting your decision making? Are you tired of that? Do you want to move on from that? Are you listening to Jesus and allowing him to transform you? Rahab listened. Maniac listened. She said, God, you tell me what to do. I'll do it. Protect the spies. Yes, sir, I'll do it. Man, just sit and listen. Don't you wish you could hear what Jesus said to transform that guy's life in that period of time? Don't you wish you could hear his words? Do you think they'd be hurtful words or words of life? Just what we need tonight. Are you listening to Jesus and allowing him to transform you? What can be done with your story and with your life? What can be done with your story and with your life tonight? Some of you are probably still, after all this, sitting there thinking, not much. I can't define your story and your life. Only God can. Remember, he made you, owned you, and purchased you. You're bought with a price. He created you and said, that's not enough. I'm going to come down and pay more. No, they're not worth that much. In my eyes, they are. He purchased us after he made us. Because he believes your story could be powerful. He believes your story could be great husband, great wife, great parent, great worker. I'm a Christian. I've helped many. I'm kind. I'm a person that looked at their life and all men did marvel. Not because you want a pat on the back, because you want to one day look at Jesus and say, then thank you. Because the label he's given to you. Challenge you, last thing, let God label you and step into that purpose for your life. Rahab changed her entire life. Said, God, I'm done. What's your purpose for my life? The maniac said, I'm done with my life. I'm tired of hiding and terrorizing people. I want to step into your purpose. And once he embraced God's purpose, an amazing transformation took place. Once Rahab did, God said, you know what, Rahab? You're on my list of heroes. Some of you ladies sitting tonight think, you know what? God doesn't really magnify women. I beg to differ on that one. Look through the Bible. Look at how he magnified them. You can make a huge impact. Read about Acts 9. Read about Tabitha, Dorcas. I'd prefer Tabitha over Dorcas, but same name. Read about them. Read about how he says you can make a huge impact. You may be a single mother thinking, I can't do much. I think God disagrees with you. You may think I've been abused and just kind of discarded. God hasn't discarded you. You may be sitting in this room tonight thinking, I'm an addict. Man, I have struggled. I have no money. I have no hope. I have no future. That's because you have the wrong label. God says you have a bright future. If you'd have interviewed the maniac minutes before he met Christ, what would he have said his future was? Hey, in a 10-city area, all men are going to marvel at you. Oh, yeah, right, because I'm such a bad person. No, because your testimony is so powerful. Would he have believed you? Are you believing God tonight? Do you believe he can do that in your life? You a kid here tonight thinking, I don't have the advantage. My parents don't come here every time. They don't support me. They don't do everything that kid's parents does. I'm just a young adult and I don't have support of my family. You have the support of your Heavenly Father. And his label for you is a powerful one. I guarantee you, his label for you is more powerful than you believe. Are you willing to change your purpose to God's? Are you willing to look at your label and say, God, what would you label me? God made you, owned you, and purchased you, and he wants you to embrace his label and his purpose because he has a big plan for you. Every head bowed and every eye closed. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you tonight for loving us. Thank you for not just creating us. You then purchased us. Thank you for giving each one of us a specific label with a purpose that we can live to if we'll just let you. God, you're amazing. Help us all to live to that label and let it magnify your love and your power through our testimony. God, I don't care who it is tonight. I don't care if it's a man, a lady, a young person, an older person, God, but help them all to embrace the label that you have for them and to step into the purpose you have for them. God, help them to believe and grasp at that hope that you can help them. God, help them to grasp at that and say, I'll give it a try. That's all we can ask, God. Please let them believe in you. You could all